Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today it is time for episode number 3 of How to Redstone, and we are going to cover everything that you need to know about the comparator. This block is used in a lot of redstone contraptions, as this is one of the most versatile blocks in the redstone world. So without further ado, let's get started with what the function is of the redstone comparator. So a redstone comparator has got 4 different functions. It can be used to maintain a redstone signal, it can be used to compare a redstone signal, and it also can be used to subtract signal strengths, and it can measure certain block states of containers or of some other miscellaneous blocks. So I'll talk about each and every function later on in this video, but right now we are going to focus on how to craft the redstone comparator. So crafting a comparator is quite easily done. You have to place down 3 stone blocks on the bottom of the crafting table, 1 quartz in the middle, and 3 redstone torches surrounding it, and there you go, you've got yourself a comparator. So let's start off with the inputs and the output of the comparator. The backside of the comparator, the side with the 2 redstone torches sticking out, is the input side. Here is where you power the comparator. The sides of the comparator are used for comparing and subtracting signals, which I will talk about later on in this video. And the top side of the comparator is used for the output side. So as you can see, when I flick this lever, a redstone does get powered by the redstone comparator. If you find it hard to learn which side is what, you can always look at the arrow, which is on top of the comparator, like this white arrow over here, with the end of the arrow being the input and the front of the arrow being the output. The redstone comparator can also be used to toggle on and off, with on being subtracting mode and off being comparing mode, and I will talk about that later on in this video also. So let's start off now with the first function of the redstone comparator. It can be used to maintain a redstone signal. So here we've got a lever, which is of course giving it the power state of 15 to the redstone comparator in front of it, and this redstone comparator gives an output of 15 to the redstone comparator in front of it. And when we go all the way to the top here, this redstone comparator also receives a power of 15, and it will maintain that power, and thus it will also give off a redstone strength of 15. So as you can see, whenever I power it up, you will see that after 15 blocks of traveling, this redstone lamp is still on. So the same is if you give it another power strength. So for example, I'm now giving it a power strength of, let's see, of 11, and as you can see, the redstone comparator now also gives off a power strength of 11. So a redstone comparator can also be used to compare different redstone strengths with each other. It is not very difficult to understand, and it basically goes as follows. If the sides of the redstone comparator have a redstone strength which is greater than the redstone input on the back of the comparator will not give off any output at all. So let me demonstrate that to you right away. So basically, whenever we give off an input on the back of the comparator, it will give off an output. And if we compare that to the same redstone strength, or to a redstone strength which is lesser, so for example this one over here, you can see that the redstone lamp still turns on. And let me explain to you why. So the input of the redstone comparator now has got a power strength of 14, and it compares that to the power strength of 13, and we can also put this to 12 for example. And basically what the redstone comparator does now, it compares this signal on the right with the signal on the back, and it evaluates. Basically it says, oh, the signal on the right is lesser than the signal on the back, so I'm still giving off an output. If we flip this around, so basically let's say we give off the redstone strength of 11 in the back, and we compare it against a stronger signal, so a power of 14 on the side, you can see that the redstone signal gets cut off because the redstone signal on the side is bigger than the redstone signal on the back, and it also works with the other side as well, of course. So that's basically what the comparing mode of a comparator does. So a redstone comparator set to subtract mode is very simple to understand. So you can toggle it on and off by right clicking on the comparator until this redstone torch in front turns on. And what does it do? Well, basically it subtracts everything on the side with the input in the back. So now we've given it a power strength of 14, and let's say we give it a strength of 8 on the side, or on 9 on the side. So we can do some quick maths. 14 minus 9, well, that is of course a power strength of 5, and as you can see, it only gives off 5 pieces of redstone dust, which means it only gives off a power strength of 5 in front of the comparator. And there you go, basically that is what the redstone comparator does in subtract mode. It is very simple, easy math. So let's do another one, shall we? So here we go, we've got a power strength of 11 in the back. And let's now give it a larger power strength on the side. So now we've got 11 minus 13, which is of course -2, which means we get no power strength whatsoever within our output. And unfortunately, there's no such thing as negative redstone outputs or negative redstone power, which means that we are left with 0 on the output. So a comparator is also able to detect how many items are inside of a container. So let's fill up this chest with a few pieces of polished granite, and as you can see, the redstone strength has now become 3. And the more granite we put into this chest, the stronger the signal becomes. And if we fill it all the way up to the maximum, you can see that the redstone strength is now a maximum of 15 blocks. So in Minecraft there are 2 types of items. You've got the stackable items, for example this core right here is stackable. And you've got the unstackable types of items, so for example these diamond swords in this chest over here. Now a chest can also be filled up with unstackable items, and whenever this chest is completely filled up, you can see that the strength of the comparator is now set to 15. However, if we try and fill only one item per slot with a stackable item like this, you can see that it does not work, and the redstone output of this comparator is now only 1, unless we fill it completely with the maximum amount of stackable items which can go into a chest, and as you can see it is now completely filled to the brim. Now you can also mix and match things together, so we can fill it up with unstackable items as well, and as you can see it also works completely like normal. On the right here we've got a furnace, which is of course different compared to a chest. It only has a maximum of 3 slots, and each slot can house only 64 items. So if we put in 64 coal for example, you can see that a third of the strength of a redstone comparator gets filled up, which is of course 5, as the maximum that a redstone comparator can give is 15, and 15 divided by 3 is of course 5. So these are all the containers that a redstone comparator can interact with, and here on the left we have a furnace, a blast furnace, a smoker, a brewing stand, we've got a hopper minecart on top of a detector rail, and this is a detector rail by the way. We've also got a chest minecart on top of a detector rail, we've got a dispenser, we've got a dropper, we've got a chest, we've got a trapped chest, we've also got the barrel, we've also got the shulker box, and it can also work with double chests and double trap chests as well. So a comparator can also interact with miscellaneous items. So here we've got a cake, a cauldron, we've got a composter, we've got a end portal frame, we've got a item frame, a jukebox, we've got a lectern, we've got a bee nest, a beehive, and in version 1.16 of the Java edition, it can also interact with the respawn anchor. So whenever a comparator interacts with a cake, it detects how much of the cake is left. So a whole cake gives off a power of 14, and whenever I eat off this cake, you can see that the power strength decreases until there is no cake left, and the comparator turns off. So an item frame has got 8 different stages, and each stage has the same power strength as the stage the item frame is in. So right now it is set in stage 1, and as you can see the comparator gives off a power strength of 1, and stage 2 gives off 2 until you reach stage 8, and this will give off a power strength of 8. A jukebox is able to give off a power strength of a maximum of 13 by the time of recording this video, as in the 1.16 update there will be 13 different music discs available. Right now in 1.15 there are only 12 music discs available, so whenever I put in the 12 music disc, you can see it gives off a power strength of 12, and if I put in the first music disc, you can see it gives off a power strength of 1. A compositor has got 8 different stages, and each stage has got its corresponding redstone strength. So right now stage 1 has got 1 redstone strength, stage 2 has got 2, and then so on until we reach 7. And as you can see, when it reaches 7, it will turn later on to 8, and then the whole line is completely filled with the power strength of 8. So a cauldron can fill up with water, and when it fills up to the maximum, you can see it gives off a redstone strength of the maximum of 3. And whenever we get rid of some water, you can see that the strength decreases with 1 until there is no water left at all. So a comparator can also detect on what page of the book you are when it is on top of a lectern. So here we've got a lectern with a book with 15 pages. And watch the redstone strength when I flip over each and every page. So here we go. Hello there, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. And there was a typo there. Good me. IQprof. And hey, there you go. Page 15 has been reached. And as you can see, the light has turned on, which means that it now has got a power strength of 15. So if you have a book, for example, with only 5 pages, then each page will have an increment with 3 redstone strength. So for example, page 1 will then have a redstone strength of 3, page 2 will have 6, 3 has 9, and so on. So the last thing I want to say is that a comparator will still always work with a block in between the comparator itself and the container or the miscellaneous item. So here we've got a dropper with 64 grade concrete in it, and as you can see with a block in between the comparator and the dropper, you will see that the comparator still works and functions. So let's get rid of the blocks inside it, and as you can see, the comparator has turned off. So lastly, the last thing I want to show you is a automated redstone clock with a redstone comparator. So this comparator is now set to subtract mode, so whenever I flick this lever, you can see that a bunch of noise is being made by these freaking pistons. And let me tell you how that works. So I'm just gonna remove this piston here very quickly. So when we flick this lever, you can see on the power level on the right of your screen that the power alternates between 15 and 2. And how does that work? Well, basically, whenever it is on, you can see that the power strength right here is set to 15, and the power strength going in the side of the comparator is set to 13. So whenever you set it to subtract mode, it will subtract 13 out of that 15, which will lead in a resulting power strength of 2 over here. And the following redstone dust will get a power strength of 1 and 14 alternating between that. And the following redstone dust will have a power strength of 0 and 13. And whenever it reaches that 0, this piston will retract. And whenever it reaches 13, this piston will go up basically. And that is basically how we create a redstone clock. It is very simple to do yourself. So basically just place down a redstone comparator, plop it into subtract mode, get some redstone dust between it, and make sure to extend it about 2 blocks. And there you go, you've got yourself a very fast redstone clock. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for this episode of How to Redstone. It has been quite a long episode as the redstone comparator is a very large block with a lot of uses, as you can see. And I hope you've learned something new today. Make sure to like if you did learn something new today, and subscribe to stay tuned for the next episode, as in the next episode I will show you some uses of the redstone comparator, what you can do with it, and how you can blow up some friends, maybe perhaps. So that's about it, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.